If sarcasm were currency, I'd be a billionaire. Too bad it can't buy happiness or a faithful spouse. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Ethan Mitchell, and I'm 36 years old with a job that sounds impressive at dinner parties, financial advisor, but really just means I help rich people stay rich while I scrape by on commission. I live in a mid-sized city that pretends to be Chicago but lacks the charm, in a house that used to feel like home but now feels like a prison with better Wi-Fi. The morning everything changed started like any other. Claire, my wife of 8 years, sat across from me at our kitchen table, her blonde hair perfectly styled even at 7 a.m., scrolling through her phone while her coffee grew cold. She worked in PR, which meant she was professionally good at making things look better than they actually were. Lately, I suspected she'd been practicing on our marriage. "We need to talk," she said, without looking up from her screen. 4 words that have never, in the history of human relationships, preceded good news. I set down my newspaper. Yes, I still read actual newspapers. Sue me, and waited. "I think we should open our marriage," Claire announced, as casually as if she were suggesting we switch cable providers. I blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "An open marriage, Ethan. We're both adults. We have needs." She finally looked at me, her blue eyes cold and calculating. "I've been thinking about this for months." "Months?" The word came out strangled. "You've been thinking about cheating on me for months? It's not cheating if we both agree to it." She pulled out a folder, an actual manila folder, like this was a business presentation. "I've drawn up some guidelines, rules we both need to follow." I stared at the folder as if it might burst into flames. "You made rules for adultery?" "Don't be dramatic." Claire opened the folder and slid a typed document across the table. "Look, Ethan, we're not 25 anymore. The spark is gone. This way we can explore other connections while maintaining our partnership." Partnership. She called our marriage a partnership. I picked up the document, scanning the bullet points with growing disbelief. No overnight stays with other partners. Always use protection. No emotional attachments. Partners must be approved by both parties. No friends or co-workers. Complete honesty about encounters. Complete honesty? I laughed, but it came out bitter. That's rich, coming from someone who's been thinking about this for months without mentioning it to her husband. I'm mentioning it now. Claire's voice carried that patient tone she used with difficult clients. "This could be good for both of us, Ethan. When's the last time you felt truly excited about anything?" The question hit harder than I expected. When was the last time? When had I stopped being a person and started being just Claire's husband, the guy who paid half the mortgage and remembered to take out the trash? "I need time to think about this," I said. "Of course." Claire stood, smoothing her skirt. "But don't take too long. I've already met someone I'd like to explore things with." My coffee mug hit the table harder than intended. "You've already got someone picked out?" "His name is Oliver. He works in advertising. Very sophisticated." She grabbed her purse and keys. "I'm having dinner with him tonight, to discuss possibilities." And just like that, she was gone, leaving me alone with her rules for destroying our marriage and the lingering scent of her expensive perfume. I sat there for 20 minutes, reading and rereading the document. Each bullet point felt like a small knife, precisely placed. The worst part? She'd thought of everything. Loopholes, contingencies, exit strategies. Claire had always been thorough. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother Daniel. "Coffee later? You sound like you need it." I hadn't realized I sounded like anything, but Daniel had always been perceptive. 2 years younger, funnier, and infinitely better at reading people, he was the only family I had left after our parents died in a car accident 5 years ago. I texted back, desperately. The rest of the day passed in a haze. At work, I went through the motions of reviewing portfolios and making recommendations, but my mind kept drifting back to Claire's folder. My boss, Mr. Vance, a perpetually distracted man who treated everyone like they were interrupting something more important, didn't seem to notice my lack of focus. "Mitchell," he called from his office around 3. "The Henderson account needs attention. Something about diversifying their bonds." "On it," I replied, though I had no idea what he was talking about. The Henderson account could wait. My marriage was imploding, and apparently I was supposed to just go along with it. At 5:30, I met Daniel at our usual spot, a dive bar called Murphy's that served coffee strong enough and didn't judge you for drinking whiskey with it. Daniel was already there, his dark hair messy from running his hands through it, a habit he'd had since childhood. "You look like hell," he said by way of greeting. "Thanks. You always know just what to say." I slumped into the booth across from him. "Claire wants an open marriage." Daniel's eyebrows shot up. "She wants to what now?" I slid the folder across the table. "Read it and weep. Literally." Daniel scanned the document, his expression shifting from surprise to disgust to something approaching anger. "She made a contract? For cheating?" "Apparently, it's not cheating if there are rules." I signaled the bartender for something stronger than coffee. "She's having dinner tonight with some advertising guy named Oliver, very sophisticated, according to my wife." "Jesus, Ethan." Daniel closed the folder. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. Sign it, I guess. What choice do I have?" "You could say no. You could fight for your marriage." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Fight for what? She's already checked out, Dan. This is just her way of making it official while keeping the house and the health insurance." The bartender brought my whiskey. I downed it in one gulp, enjoying the burn. "So you're just going to let her walk all over you?" Daniel's voice carried an edge I rarely heard from him. "What would you have me do? Chain her to the radiator?" "I'd have you grow a spine." Daniel leaned forward. "Look, I know you love her, but this is insane. She's basically asking for permission to humiliate you." He was right, of course. But what he didn't understand was that I was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of trying to fix something that was clearly broken. Tired of being the only one who seemed to care about our marriage. "Maybe it'll be good for us," I said, not believing it for a second. "Maybe we need this." Daniel stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "You don't believe that?" "No," I admitted. "But I don't know what else to do." I got home around 8 to find Claire's car already in the driveway. So much for her dinner with Oliver. I found her in the living room, looking pleased with herself in that way that usually meant bad news for me. "How was your date?" I asked. "It wasn't a date. It was a discussion." She smiled. "But it went very well. Oliver is impressive." "I'm sure he is." I sat down across from her. "I've been thinking about your proposal." "And?" I pulled out a pen. "I'll sign your rules, but I have one condition." Claire's eyes narrowed. "What condition?" "If we're doing this, we document everything, every encounter, every partner, every detail. Complete transparency, like you said." "That seems unnecessary." "It's my only condition, Claire. Take it or leave it." She considered this, probably weighing the pros and cons like she would any business decision. Finally, she nodded. "Fine. Complete transparency." I signed the document with a flourish, each letter feeling like a small act of rebellion. If Claire wanted to destroy our marriage, I'd make sure she did it thoroughly. "There," I said, sliding the papers back to her. "Happy now?" "I think we both will be." She gathered the documents. "This is a new chapter for us, Ethan. You'll see." As I watched her walk upstairs, probably to text Oliver about her victory, I realized something had shifted inside me. The hurt was still there, sharp and persistent, but underneath it was something else, something that felt almost like anticipation. If Claire wanted to play games, I'd learn the rules, and maybe, just maybe, I'd get good enough to win. The next few weeks were an education in humiliation. Claire didn't waste time putting her new freedom to use, and she made sure I knew about it. Not directly, that would violate the spirit of her carefully crafted rules, but through 1,000 small cruelties that added up to a masterclass in psychological warfare. She started staying out late, coming home with that particular glow that comes from being desired by someone new. Her phone buzzed constantly with texts that made her smile in ways I hadn't seen in years. She bought new lingerie, expensive stuff that never made an appearance in our bedroom. "How's Oliver?" I asked one morning, watching her get ready for work with more care than she'd shown in months. "He's wonderful," she said, applying lipstick with surgical precision. "We're having lunch today, at that new place downtown." The new place downtown was expensive, the kind of place you took someone you wanted to impress. I wondered if she was paying, or if Oliver was the type to pick up the check. Probably the latter. Claire had always been attracted to men who could afford to spoil her. My own attempts at exploring our open marriage were less successful. The dating apps Claire had insisted I download felt like shopping for groceries. Sterile, transactional, depressing. I managed a few coffee dates with women who seemed nice enough, but my heart wasn't in it. How could it be, when I was coming home every night to a wife who was clearly getting everything she needed elsewhere? The worst part was our friends. Claire had always been the social coordinator in our relationship, the one who planned dinner parties and organized group outings. Now, those same friends were watching our marriage disintegrate in real time, and most of them seemed to be taking sides. Maya, Claire's closest friend and the neighborhood gossip queen, had apparently been given the full briefing on our new arrangement. I realized this when I overheard her at a barbecue at our neighbor's house, talking to Jules, another member of Claire's inner circle. "I have to admire Claire's honesty," Maya was saying, her voice carrying that fake sincerity she'd perfected. "So many couples just cheat behind each other's backs. At least she's being upfront about her needs. And Oliver is so much more dynamic than Ethan," Jules added. "I mean, Ethan's sweet, but he's so passive. Claire needs someone who can match her energy." I was standing behind a hedge, ostensibly checking on the grill, but really just listening to my character assassination. It was fascinating, in a car crash sort of way. "Have you met him?" Maya asked. "Once. He picked Claire up from book club last week. Drives a BMW, very well dressed. You can tell he takes care of himself." Jules' tone suggested I did not take care of myself. Claire looked so happy. "She deserves happiness," Maya concluded, as if I'd been actively preventing it for 8 years. I walked away before I could hear more, but the damage was done. This wasn't just about Claire and me anymore. This was public, and the court of public opinion had already reached its verdict. That night, I confronted Claire about it. "Your friends are talking," I said, "about us, about Oliver." Claire was in bed, reading a novel I didn't recognize. She didn't look up. "People talk, Ethan. It's what they do. They're talking about how much better he is than me, how much happier you are with him." "Aren't I?" She finally met my eyes. "Aren't I happier?" The question hung in the air between us, because she was right. She was happier, lighter, more like the woman I'd fallen in love with a decade ago, except that woman was being brought to life by someone else. "I just think we should be more discreet," I said. "Why?" "We're not doing anything wrong. We have an agreement." "An agreement you wrote. An agreement you signed." Claire closed her book and turned to face me fully. "Look, I know this is hard for you. It's an adjustment, but you'll find your footing. You just need to put yourself out there more." Put myself out there more. As if the problem was my lack of effort, not the fact that my wife was systematically replacing me with a BMW driving advertising executive. "Maybe you could give me some pointers," I said. "Since you're doing so well." Claire's smile was sharp. Are you being sarcastic? Would I do that? You would. You do. She turned off her bedside lamp. Good night, Ethan. I lay awake for hours that night, listening to Claire's steady breathing and thinking about Maya and Jules's conversation. Dynamic. That's what they'd called Oliver. Dynamic, while I was passive. Sweet, but passive. The next day at work, I found myself actually paying attention to my job for the first time in weeks. The Henderson account that Mr. Vance had mentioned was indeed a mess. Their portfolio was scattered, unfocused, vulnerable. It would take weeks to straighten out, but it was the kind of challenge I used to enjoy. You seem different today, said Rita, the office's part-time legal consultant and my closest thing to a friend at work. Rita was sharp, mid-40s, with silver hair and the kind of no-nonsense attitude that came from years of dealing with other people's problems. Different how? Focused. Angry, maybe. It's a good look on you. I laughed. Thanks, I think. Seriously, though, you've been walking around like a ghost for weeks. What changed? I considered telling her about Claire, about the open marriage and Oliver and the whole humiliating mess. Instead, I just shrugged. Maybe I'm tired of being passive. Rita raised an eyebrow. That sounds ominous. Does it? Good. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in months. I went to the gym. Not the fancy place Claire belonged to, but the old-school gym downtown where serious people went to lift heavy things and sweat out their frustrations. It felt good to push my body, to focus on something simple and physical. I was on the treadmill, working through my second mile, when I saw him. Oliver. He was hard to miss. Tall, perfectly groomed, wearing workout clothes that probably cost more than my monthly gym membership. He was doing bicep curls in front of the mirror, admiring his own reflection with the kind of confidence that came from never having been told no. I watched him for a while, this man who was sleeping with my wife. He was handsome, I had to admit. Broad shoulders, strong jaw, the kind of effortless charisma that made people want to be around him. I could see why Claire was attracted to him. What I couldn't see was what he saw in her. Don't get me wrong. Claire was beautiful, successful, intelligent. But she was also married, complicated, the kind of drama that most sensible men avoided. Unless, of course, you were the type who enjoyed the challenge, the conquest. Oliver finished his set and moved to the bench press. I watched him load the bar with more weight than I could handle, watched him pump out rep after rep with machine-like precision. Everything about him screamed superiority, from his expensive sneakers to his perfect form. I finished my run and was heading to the locker room when I heard him talking to another guy, someone who was clearly a regular workout partner. She's incredible, Oliver was saying. Smart, beautiful, knows what she wants, and the husband's completely clueless, just lets it happen. Sounds too good to be true, his friend replied. That's what I thought at first. But some guys are just natural losers, you know. They accept whatever life hands them instead of fighting for what they want. Natural losers. That's what I was to him. Not even a person worth considering, just an obstacle that had conveniently removed itself. I stood there in the doorway to the locker room, invisible to them, listening to Oliver describe my marriage like it was his personal entertainment. And something inside me, something that had been building for weeks, finally snapped. I walked over to where they were sitting. "Excuse me," I said. "I couldn't help but overhear. You're talking about my wife." Oliver looked up, and I saw the exact moment he recognized me. His confident smile faltered just for a second, before sliding back into place. "Ethan, right?" He stood, extending a hand. "Oliver, nice to finally meet you." I looked at his outstretched hand but didn't take it. "Is it?" "Claire's told me a lot about you." His tone was friendly, but his eyes were calculating. "She says you're very understanding about our arrangement." Understanding. Is that what she calls it? Look, man, I know this might be awkward, but we're all adults here. Claire and I, we have something special, but that doesn't take anything away from what you two have. And what do we have exactly? Oliver's friend was watching this exchange with the fascination of someone witnessing a car accident. Oliver himself seemed to be enjoying it. You have history, he said. Comfort, security. Those are valuable things, but not exciting things. Well, no, not exciting. His smile was patronizing now. But excitement isn't everything, right? Some people are built for adventure, others for stability. Nothing wrong with being the stable guy. The stable guy, the natural loser, the husband who just lets it happen. You're right, I said. Nothing wrong with stability. Oliver relaxed, thinking he'd won something. But there's nothing wrong with a little excitement either, I continued. Thanks for the reminder. I walked away before he could respond, but I could feel his eyes on me as I headed to the locker room. Let him wonder what I meant. Let him think about it. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than resignation. I felt possibility. That night, Claire came home late again, humming to herself as she kicked off her heels. She was glowing, practically vibrating with satisfaction. Good evening? I asked from the couch. Wonderful evening. She flopped down next to me, closer than she'd sat in months. Oliver took me to that new rooftop bar, the one with the view of the river. Sounds romantic. It was. She studied my face. You seem different tonight. Happier, maybe. Do I? Yes. It's nice to see. She leaned over and kissed my cheek, a quick, friendly peck. I told you this would be good for both of us. I smiled and nodded, playing the part of the understanding husband. But inside, I was thinking about Oliver's words at the gym, about Maya and Jules's conversation, about all the ways I'd been diminished and dismissed. Claire was right about one thing. This was going to be good for both of us. Just not in the way she expected. I started keeping a journal, nothing fancy, just a simple notebook where I documented everything. Every late night, every new piece of lingerie, every overheard conversation. Claire had wanted complete transparency after all. I was just making sure we had a record. The documentation revealed patterns I might have missed otherwise. Claire's dinners with Oliver happened every Tuesday and Friday. She always came home by midnight, respecting her own rule about no overnight stays, but those few hours stretched like an eternity. I used the time productively, going through our finances, our social media accounts, our shared digital life. What I found was illuminating. Claire had been more careless than she realized. Her laptop, which she often left open on the kitchen counter, was logged into her email, her social media, her cloud storage. I wasn't snooping, exactly. We'd always shared passwords, back when we trusted each other. I was just staying informed. The group chat was the first real bombshell. It was called Girls' Night Out, though it seemed to be active 24/7. The participants were Claire, Maya, Jules, and two other women I recognized from Claire's work. The conversation history was a goldmine of gossip, complaints, and increasingly explicit details about Claire's new relationship. Claire, he's taking me to the Ritz for drinks tomorrow. I feel like a teenager again. Maya, living vicariously through you. How's Ethan handling all this? Claire, better than expected. He's actually being very mature about it. Jules, mature or defeated? There's a difference. Claire, does it matter? The important thing is he's not making it difficult. Maya, still can't believe you got him to sign that contract. You're diabolical. Claire, I prefer strategic. Why should I sneak around when I can be honest? Jules, honest about cheating on your husband? Claire, it's not cheating if he agrees to it. We've been over this. Maya, whatever helps you sleep at night. Speaking of which, details about last Friday. You said Oliver was impressive. What followed was a detailed description of my wife's sex life with another man. I read every word, my jaw clenching tighter with each explicit detail. But I kept reading, because knowledge was power, and I was tired of being powerless. The conversation continued over several days, with Claire sharing increasingly intimate details about her relationship with Oliver. The other women egged her on, treating her affair like entertainment. My marriage had become their reality TV show. But the most damaging revelation came near the end of the chat history. Claire: I think I'm falling for him. Maya: Uh-oh, that's against your own rules, isn't it? Claire: Rules can change. Maybe it's time to think about what I really want. Jules: Are you talking about leaving Ethan? Claire: I'm talking about being happy. For the first time in years, I remember what that feels like. Maya: What about the house? The finances? You guys have everything tied up together. Claire: Oliver makes good money. And if I play this right, I might not have to give up as much as you'd think. Ethan signed that contract, remember? He agreed to this. That might work in my favor if things get messy. Jules: You're scary when you're strategic. Claire: I prefer thorough. I closed the laptop and sat back in my chair, processing what I'd just read. Claire wasn't just having an affair, she was planning an exit strategy. The open marriage contract wasn't about exploring new possibilities. It was about positioning herself for a divorce where she could claim I'd been a willing participant in the breakdown of our marriage. I had to admire the strategy, even as it made me sick. Claire had always been good at thinking 3 moves ahead. While I'd been wallowing in self-pity, she'd been building a case for why she deserved everything and I deserved nothing. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. The next morning, I called in sick to work and spent the day with Rita. Not romantically. Rita was happily married and had made it clear she wasn't interested in being anyone's rebound. But she was a lawyer, and I needed legal advice. You want to show me what? Rita asked when I called. A contract. I need to know what it actually says, legally speaking. We met at a coffee shop downtown, away from the office and prying eyes. I brought Claire's open marriage agreement, along with printouts of the most damaging parts of the group chat. Rita read through everything twice, her expression growing more incredulous with each page. Jesus, Ethan, she said finally. Your wife is a piece of work. Tell me something I don't know. What I need to know is, does this contract actually protect her in a divorce? Rita shook her head. Just the opposite. This document is evidence of adultery, plain and simple. The fact that you signed it doesn't make it legally binding. You can't contract away your rights in a marriage. If anything, this shows premeditation on her part. Premeditation? She planned this, Ethan. The contract, the documentation requirements, all of it. She was building a paper trail to make herself look reasonable, and you look complicit. But it backfired. I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. What about the group chat? Pure gold. It shows her real motivations, her intent to leave you, her strategy for the divorce. Any judge would see this for what it is, calculated manipulation. Rita leaned forward, her voice dropping. Ethan, if you play this right, you could walk away with everything. The house, the assets, maybe even alimony. Claire's been too clever for her own good. I don't want alimony from her, I said. I just want her to face consequences for once in her life. Then you're in luck, because this is enough to destroy her, financially and socially. That afternoon, I went back to the gym. I knew Oliver would be there. He was as predictable as he was arrogant. I found him at the same bench press, pumping iron with the same mechanical precision. This time, I didn't approach him directly. Instead, I sat up at the machine next to his and waited. It didn't take long. Ethan, right? He'd finished his set and was toweling off. How's it going? Can't complain, I said. You? Living the dream. His smile was smug. Actually, I've been meaning to thank you. Thank me? For being so cool about everything. With Claire, I mean. A lot of guys would make this difficult. Why would I make it difficult? She's happy, I'm happy. Everyone wins. Oliver studied my face, looking for signs of sarcasm or hidden anger. He found neither, because I'd gotten very good at hiding my feelings. That's a mature attitude, he said. Claire's lucky to have someone so understanding. She is, isn't she? I smiled. Though between you and me, I think I'm the lucky one. How's that? Well, you're doing all the work of keeping her satisfied, and I get to reap the benefits. She comes home from your dates glowing, happy, relaxed. It's like having a wife who's perpetually in a good mood, without having to put in the effort myself. Oliver's smile faltered slightly. He clearly hadn't considered this angle. Plus, I continued, when she gets bored with you, and she will, she always does, I'll still be here. The stable guy, remember? The one with the mortgage and the retirement plan and the health insurance. You think she'll get bored with me? There was an edge to his voice now. I think Claire gets bored with everyone eventually. It's her nature. She needs constant stimulation, constant novelty. How long have you two been seeing each other? A month? 2 months? 6 weeks. Right around the time she starts looking for the next shiny object. I finished my set and stood up. But hey, enjoy it while it lasts. And thanks for keeping her busy. It's given me time to focus on other things. I walked away, leaving Oliver to contemplate the possibility that he wasn't as special as he'd thought. It was a small victory, but it felt good to see doubt creep into his confident facade. That night, Claire came home early, around 9:30. She seemed agitated, distracted. Everything okay? I asked. Fine, she said, but her tone suggested otherwise. Oliver had to cancel. Some work thing. I nodded sympathetically. That's too bad. You were looking forward to seeing him. It's not a big deal. She poured herself a large glass of wine. Actually, it's nice to have an evening at home for once. We sat together on the couch, watching a movie neither of us cared about. Claire kept checking her phone, frowning at the screen. He's not texting back, she said finally. Maybe he's busy with work. Maybe. But she didn't sound convinced. I hid my smile behind my beer bottle. The seed of doubt I'd planted at the gym was already taking root. Oliver was probably fine, probably just busy like he'd said. But Claire's insecurity was showing, and insecurity made people sloppy. Over the next few days, the cracks in Claire's perfect new relationship became more apparent. Oliver was less available, less attentive. Their Tuesday dinner was postponed, then canceled altogether. Claire's glow began to fade, replaced by the familiar anxiety I remembered from the early days of our relationship, when she was constantly worried about whether I really loved her. I think Oliver might be seeing someone else, she confided to me on Thursday night. We were in bed, the first time we'd been there at the same time in weeks. What makes you think that? He's been distant, evasive, and Maya saw him at lunch with some blonde from his office. Maybe it was just a work meeting. Maybe. Claire turned to face me in the dark. Would you be happy if things didn't work out with Oliver? The question caught me off guard. Would you want me to be happy about it? I don't know. Maybe. I think I might have gotten carried away with all of this. The open marriage? Yeah. It seemed like such a good idea at the time. Freedom, honesty, no more pretending. But it's more complicated than I thought it would be. I reached over and touched her hand. Relationships usually are. Do you think we made a mistake? It was the closest thing to an apology I'd gotten from her, and a few weeks ago, I might have grabbed onto it like a lifeline. But now, with Rita's words echoing in my head and Oliver's doubt-filled expression fresh in my memory, I felt something different. I think we both learned something about what we really want, I said. Claire squeezed my hand. I've missed this, just talking to you. I've missed it too. And that was the truth, even as I was planning her destruction. I had missed my wife, missed the woman she'd been before ambition and boredom had turned her into someone I barely recognized. But missing someone and trusting them were two different things, and I'd never trust Claire again. The next morning, she was back to checking her phone obsessively, waiting for Oliver to text. When he finally did, around noon, she practically glowed with relief. "He wants to see me tonight," she announced. "He's been swamped with a big campaign, but it's finally wrapping up." "That's great," I said. "You should go." "Are you sure? After last night, I thought maybe we could—" "Claire." I took her hands in mine, looked directly into her eyes. "Go. Have fun. We're fine." She kissed me then, quick and grateful, and I let her, because I knew it would probably be the last time. That evening, while Claire was out rebuilding her relationship with Oliver, I was busy building my case against her. I documented everything: the group chat, the financial records, the timeline of her affair. I created a folder on my computer labeled Insurance and filled it with enough evidence to destroy her reputation and her divorce strategy. But evidence was just the beginning. If I wanted real justice, I needed to think bigger. I needed to be as strategic as Claire had been, as thorough as she prided herself on being. I needed to learn how to play her game better than she did. The transformation didn't happen overnight. For weeks, I played the role of the understanding husband while quietly building my arsenal. Claire, meanwhile, seemed to be settling back into her routine with Oliver, their temporary rough patch smoothed over by whatever lies he'd told her about his availability. But I was learning things about both of them that they didn't know I knew. Oliver worked at Brennan & Associates, a mid-tier advertising firm downtown. A little digging revealed that his big campaign excuse had been fabricated. The company's social media showed no major projects wrapping up. More interesting was what I found in the public records. Oliver was married, had been for 3 years, to a woman named Jessica who worked as a corporate lawyer and, based on her LinkedIn profile, made significantly more money than he did. This information sat in my back pocket like a loaded gun while I watched Claire float through her days, blissfully unaware that her sophisticated new boyfriend was as much of a fraud as she was. The neighborhood barbecue at the Hendersons' house provided the perfect opportunity to test the waters. It was one of those mandatory suburban social events where everyone pretended to enjoy each other's company while secretly cataloging each other's failures. Claire loved these gatherings. They gave her a chance to perform the role of the successful, happy wife. "Ethan," Maya descended on me the moment we arrived, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "How are you holding up? Claire says you're adjusting well to your new arrangement." "I'm doing great, actually," I said, accepting a beer from our host. "Really great." "That's so mature of you." Maya's tone suggested she found my maturity disappointing. Most men would be threatened by someone like Oliver. Why would I be threatened? He's doing me a favor. Maya's perfectly sculpted eyebrows shot up. A favor? Sure. He's taking care of Claire's needs, so I don't have to. It's actually quite liberating. I watched Maya process this, saw the exact moment she realized I wasn't playing the role of the humiliated husband she'd expected. Behind her, Jules had stopped pretending not to eavesdrop and was listening openly. "Liberating how?" Jules asked. "Well, for one thing, I've had more time to focus on work. My boss just gave me the Henderson account. Big promotion, significant raise." This was true, though the raise was modest at best. And I've been exploring some opportunities of my own. This was not true, but Maya and Jules didn't need to know that. Opportunities? Maya leaned in closer, her gossip radar pinging. Nothing serious yet, but it turns out there are a lot of women who find married men interesting. Something about the challenge, I guess. I let that hang in the air for a moment, watching their faces. Maya looked intrigued, Jules looked confused, and Claire, who had just walked up with a plate of appetizers, looked stunned. "What are you talking about?" Claire asked. "Just telling Maya and Jules how well our arrangement is working out for both of us," I said, putting my arm around her waist. "Isn't that right, honey?" Claire's smile was strained. "Of course. I was just saying how liberating it's been. For both of us." I squeezed her closer. Claire gets to explore her connection with Oliver, and I get to explore other possibilities. Other possibilities? Claire's voice was carefully controlled, but I could hear the edge underneath. "Nothing concrete yet," I said, "but I'm keeping my options open, like we agreed." The conversation moved on to safer topics: neighborhood gossip, weekend plans, the weather, but I could feel Claire's tension radiating beside me. When we got home that night, she confronted me immediately. "What was that about?" she demanded. "All that talk about opportunities and other women?" "I was just following your lead," I said innocently, "being open about our arrangement." "But you're not actually... you haven't been... Haven't been what? Seeing other people? Isn't that the whole point of this experiment?" Claire stared at me, and I could see her trying to figure out if I was serious. The truth was, I wasn't seeing anyone else. I didn't have the time or energy for dating when I was busy planning my revenge. But Claire didn't know that, and her uncertainty was delicious. "I just thought we should probably discuss it if either of us was going to start seeing other people regularly. Like you discussed Oliver with me before you started seeing him." Claire had the grace to look embarrassed. "That was different. We hadn't established the rules yet." "Right. Well, don't worry. If I meet someone special, you'll be the first to know." That night, Claire was unusually attentive, almost clingy. She curled up next to me on the couch, asked about my day, showed more interest in my life than she had in months. It would have been touching if I hadn't known she was just marking her territory. The next phase of my plan required more delicate maneuvering. I needed to get closer to Oliver, to understand his weaknesses and vulnerabilities. The gym had been a good start, but I needed something more substantial. The opportunity came through work, of all places. Brennan and Associates was pitching for a campaign with one of my clients, a regional bank looking to update their image. When my client asked for my opinion on the various agencies they were considering, I made sure to put in a good word for Oliver's firm. "I know someone who works there," I told my client. "Very sharp guy. I think they'd do good work for you." It wasn't hard to arrange a meeting. Oliver was eager to make the connection, especially when I mentioned the size of the potential contract. We met for drinks at an upscale bar downtown, the kind of place where Oliver felt comfortable and important. "This is incredibly generous of you," Oliver said, settling into the leather booth with his expensive whiskey. "Most guys in your position would be looking for ways to screw me over, not help me out." "Why would I want to screw you over? We're both getting what we want out of this situation." Oliver studied my face, still looking for the catch. "You're really okay with all this? With Claire and me?" "Oliver, can I be honest with you? Please. My marriage was dying long before you came along. Claire and we'd become roommates, not lovers. You brought back her spark, her joy. If anything, I should be thanking you." This was partially true, which made it easier to sell. Oliver relaxed, his guard dropping. "She's an incredible woman," he said. "Beautiful, intelligent, passionate. You're lucky to have had 8 years with her." "Had" being the operative phrase. Oliver's eyes sharpened. "What do you mean?" "Come on, Oliver. We're both adults here. You think this arrangement is permanent? You think Claire's going to stay married to me while she's falling in love with you?" I watched his face carefully, saw the flicker of surprise when I mentioned love. So Claire hadn't told him about her feelings yet. Interesting. "She said she was happy with the current setup," Oliver said carefully. "She is, for now. But Claire's not the type to do things halfway. When she commits to something, or someone, she commits completely." I leaned forward, lowering my voice conspiratorially. "Between you and me, I think she's just waiting for the right moment to ask for a divorce. She's being careful about it, making sure all her ducks are in a row. Has she said something to you? Not directly, but I know my wife, ex-wife probably, by this time next year. Oliver absorbed this information, and I could practically see the wheels turning in his head. Was he ready for that level of commitment? Did he want Claire to leave her husband for him? What about you? He asked. How do you feel about that possibility? Honestly, relieved. Claire and I want different things out of life. She needs excitement, adventure, someone who can match her ambition. That's not me, Oliver, but it might be you. I raised my glass in a mock toast. To new beginnings. Oliver clinked his glass against mine, but his smile was uncertain. I'd planted the seed of a much bigger problem. The possibility that Claire wanted more from him than he was prepared to give. Over the following weeks, I watched that seed grow. Oliver became more distant again, and Claire's insecurity returned with a vengeance. Their carefully structured affair was becoming messy, emotional, complicated, everything Claire had tried to avoid with her rules and contracts. Meanwhile, I was gathering more intelligence. A private investigator would have been too expensive and too risky, but social media was free and surprisingly revealing. Jessica, Oliver's wife, was active on Instagram, posting photos of their life together, their anniversary dinner, their weekend trips, their shared friends. She had no idea her husband was cheating on her with a married woman who thought she was his only secret. But the real breakthrough came when I discovered Oliver's weakness, his professional insecurity. Despite his confident exterior, he was struggling at work. His last 3 campaigns had underperformed, and there were rumors that Brennan and Associates was considering layoffs. Oliver needed that bank contract I'd helped him get, needed it desperately, which gave me leverage. I started small, just friendly check-ins about how the pitch was going. Oliver was grateful for my interest, eager to share his progress and anxieties. I played the role of the supportive friend, offering encouragement and advice. The presentation is next week, he told me during one of our gym encounters. I think we have a good shot, but the competition is fierce. I'm sure you'll do great, I said. My client was very impressed with your initial proposal. Really? That's great to hear. Oliver looked genuinely relieved. This contract could make my whole year. I hope it works out for you. You deserve some good news. What Oliver didn't know was that I'd been in touch with my client, subtly raising concerns about Brennan and Associates' recent performance, their high turnover rate, their reputation for missing deadlines. Nothing too direct, nothing that could be traced back to me. Just enough doubt to make them reconsider. The bank chose a different agency. Oliver was devastated. When he told me the news, his confident facade cracked completely. I don't understand it, he said. The presentation went perfectly. They seemed really interested. These things happen, I said sympathetically. There are so many factors that go into these decisions. I'm sure something better will come along. But we both knew that wasn't necessarily true. In Oliver's business, reputation was everything, and a string of losses could be career-ending. That night, Claire came home from her date with Oliver in a foul mood. He was distracted all evening, she complained. Barely talked to me, kept checking his phone. I don't know what's gotten into him lately. Maybe he's stressed about work. Maybe he's losing interest. Claire poured herself a glass of wine, her movements sharp and angry. Men are all the same. As soon as they think they have you figured out, they start looking for the next challenge. I made sympathetic noises, but inside, I was celebrating. Oliver's professional problems were bleeding into his personal life, just as I'd hoped. The confident, dynamic man Claire had fallen for was revealing himself to be as flawed and vulnerable as anyone else. The final piece of my puzzle came together when Maya, ever the gossip, shared a tidbit she'd picked up at her yoga class. "You'll never guess what I heard about Oliver," she said during one of Claire's dinner parties. I was in the kitchen, supposedly helping with drinks, but really just listening. "What?" Claire asked, trying to sound casual. "Apparently he's married. Has been for years. Cindy from my yoga class knows his wife. They work at the same law firm." I watched Claire's face go white. "That's impossible." He would have told me. Would he? Men lie, Claire, especially married men looking for a little excitement on the side. It's not like that. But even as Claire protested, I could see the doubt creeping in. All the little inconsistencies she'd ignored, all the times Oliver had been unavailable or evasive, suddenly made sense in a new and devastating context. That night, Claire confronted Oliver. I didn't hear the conversation directly, but I could piece together what happened from Claire's tear-stained face when she came home and the flurry of angry texts that followed. Oliver had admitted to being married, but claimed it was just a formality, that he and Jessica were separated in all but name. He accused Claire of being naive if she thought their relationship was anything more than a mutually beneficial arrangement. He reminded her that she was married too, that neither of them had any right to expect exclusivity or commitment. It was a masterful piece of gaslighting, turning Claire's legitimate hurt into unreasonable expectations. But it was also the beginning of the end. Over the next few days, Claire's perfect affair crumbled completely. Oliver stopped returning her calls, canceled their standing dates, made it clear that whatever they'd had was over. Claire was left with nothing but the wreckage of her marriage and the humiliation of having been discarded by a man who'd never taken her seriously in the first place. "I think I made a mistake," she told me one night, tears streaming down her face. "With all of this, with Oliver, with the open marriage, with everything." "Relationships are complicated," I said, handing her a tissue. "Sometimes we have to make mistakes to figure out what we really want." "What I want is my husband back," she said. "What I want is to fix this mess I've made." I held her while she cried, stroking her hair and making soothing noises. But inside, I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Claire had gotten exactly what she deserved, and I was just getting started. Because while she'd been busy destroying our marriage, I'd been busy preparing for war. And now that she was vulnerable, now that she needed me, it was time to show her just how thoroughly she'd underestimated the man she'd tried to humiliate. The real revenge was about to begin. Claire's attempts at reconciliation might have been touching if they weren't so transparently desperate. She started small, cooking my favorite meals, wearing the perfume I'd bought her for our anniversary, asking about my day with genuine interest. When those gestures failed to produce the forgiveness she was hoping for, she escalated. "I want to tear up the contract," she announced one evening, producing the open marriage agreement from her desk drawer. "I want us to go back to the way things were." I looked at the document that had started this whole mess, remembering the morning she'd presented it to me like a business proposal. Now the pages looked worn, creased from handling, stained with what might have been tears. "Are you sure that's what you want?" I asked. "I'm sure. Oliver was a mistake. This whole thing was a mistake." Claire's voice cracked slightly. "I almost lost you, Ethan. I almost lost us." "Almost?" She looked up at me with hope shining in her eyes. "We can fix this, can't we? We can go back?" I pretended to consider her question, letting the silence stretch between us. Claire waited, barely breathing, for my answer. "I don't think we can go back," I said finally. "Too much has happened. But we can go forward, we can build something new." "Can we? Based on what? Trust?" Claire flinched as if I'd slapped her. "I know I hurt you. I know I broke your trust. But people make mistakes, Ethan. People learn from them." "Some mistakes can't be undone, Claire. This one can. I'll do whatever it takes." "Whatever it takes." The phrase echoed in my head as I looked at my wife, really looked at her. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes, the stress lines that had appeared over the past few weeks. She looked fragile, desperate, nothing like the confident woman who'd presented me with her rules for adultery just a few months ago. A few months ago, I might have been moved by her vulnerability. I might have seen it as an opportunity for genuine reconciliation, a chance to rebuild our marriage on a foundation of honesty and mutual respect. But that was before I'd read her group chat messages, before I'd learned about her exit strategy, her plan to position herself as the reasonable party in our inevitable divorce, before I'd realized that everything, the open marriage, the rules, even Oliver himself, had been calculated moves in a game I hadn't known we were playing. "Okay," I said. "Let's try." Claire's face lit up with relief and gratitude. She threw her arms around me, holding me tight enough that I could feel her heart racing. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for giving us another chance." I held her back, stroking her hair, playing the part of the forgiving husband. But my mind was already 3 moves ahead, planning the final phase of my revenge. The next few weeks were a careful dance of deception. Claire threw herself into the role of the repentant wife with the same intensity she'd once brought to her affair. She was attentive, affectionate, eager to please. She canceled plans with her friends, declined invitations to social events, focused all her energy on repairing our relationship. I played along, accepting her gestures of reconciliation while secretly documenting everything. Every conversation, every promise, every moment of vulnerability. Because I knew that Claire's remorse, like everything else about her, was strategic. She wasn't sorry for hurting me. She was sorry for getting caught, sorry for backing herself into a corner where she needed my forgiveness to maintain her comfortable life. The proof came during a dinner party at Maya's house, one of the first social events Claire had agreed to attend since her reconciliation campaign began. I watched her work the room, rebuilding the relationships she'd damaged during her affair, spinning a narrative of temporary insanity and renewed commitment to her marriage. "I don't know what I was thinking," she told a group of neighbors, her voice perfectly calibrated to convey regret without seeming pathetic. "I got caught up in this fantasy of excitement and freedom, and I nearly threw away the best thing in my life." "We all make mistakes," said Mrs. Henderson, our elderly neighbor who'd always been fond of Claire. "The important thing is that you recognized it and made it right." "Ethan's been so understanding," Claire continued, reaching for my hand. "More understanding than I deserved. I'm lucky to have him." I squeezed her hand and smiled, the picture of the devoted husband. But I was thinking about the group chat messages, about her plans to claim I'd been a willing participant in the breakdown of our marriage. I was thinking about how easily she'd manipulated everyone in this room, how quickly they'd accepted her version of events. Later that evening, when we were alone in the car, Claire was practically glowing with satisfaction. "That went well," she said. "I think people are starting to see that we're really committed to making this work." "Is that important to you? What people think?" "Of course it's important. We live in this community, Ethan. These are our friends and neighbors. Their opinion matters." Their opinion mattered because Claire was still thinking about her exit strategy. She was rebuilding her reputation, positioning herself as the wife who'd made a mistake but fought to save her marriage. When she eventually filed for divorce, and I had no doubt she eventually would, she'd be able to claim she'd tried everything, that I was the one who couldn't forgive and move forward. It was brilliant, really. Claire had learned from her mistakes with Oliver, had realized that she needed to be more careful, more patient. She was playing a longer game now, one that would leave her looking sympathetic rather than predatory. But she'd made one crucial error. She'd assumed I was still the same passive, understanding man who'd signed her contract without a fight. The final phase of my plan began with a phone call to Jessica, Oliver's wife. I'd been tracking her social media for weeks, waiting for the right opportunity. It came when she posted about a work conference she was attending in Chicago, just a few hours' drive from our city. "Mrs. Chen," I said when she answered her phone. My name is Ethan Mitchell. I think we need to talk about your husband. There was a long pause. I'm sorry. Who is this? I'm married to Claire Mitchell. I believe you know her as the woman your husband was having an affair with. Another pause, longer this time. When Jessica spoke again, her voice was carefully controlled. I think you have me confused with someone else. Oliver Chen works at Brennan & Associates, drives a BMW, tells people he's separated when he's actually very much married to a successful lawyer who makes more money than he does. I heard her sharp intake of breath. How did you get this number? I'm very good at finding information when I need to. The question is, what are you going to do with the information I'm about to give you? We met at a coffee shop in Chicago, in the lobby of Jessica's hotel. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, with short black hair and the kind of sharp intelligence that comes from years of arguing cases in court. She listened without interruption as I laid out the timeline of Oliver's affair with Claire, showed her the evidence I'd collected, explained how both our spouses had manipulated and deceived us. Why are you telling me this? She asked when I finished. Your wife ended the affair. According to you, she's trying to reconcile. Because I don't believe the affair is really over, and because I think you deserve to know who you're married to. Jessica studied the photos I'd printed out. Oliver and Claire at restaurants, holding hands, kissing in parking lots. Her expression never changed, but I could see her lawyer's mind working, cataloging evidence, building a case. What do you want from me? She asked finally. I want Oliver to face consequences for what he did, and I want Claire to understand that actions have repercussions, even when you think you've covered your tracks. You want revenge. I want justice. There's a difference. Jessica smiled for the first time since we'd sat down. It wasn't a pleasant expression. No, Mr. Mitchell, there really isn't. 2 weeks later, Claire received a summons. Jessica was filing for divorce, and she was naming Claire as a co-respondent in an alienation of affection lawsuit. It was a rarely used legal maneuver, but Jessica had done her research. In our state, a spouse could sue their partner's lover for damages related to the breakdown of the marriage. Claire was devastated. This is insane, she said, pacing around our living room with the legal documents in her hand. How can she sue me? Oliver told me they were separated. Were they separated? He implied. Claire's voice trailed off as she realized how weak her defense sounded. Did you verify that? Did you ask to see separation papers, or did you just take his word for it? I trusted him. The way you trusted me when you signed that open marriage contract? Claire stopped pacing and stared at me. What does that have to do with anything? Trust, Claire. It's what marriages are built on. When you break it, there are consequences. Are you saying I deserve this? That I deserve to be sued by some woman I've never even met? I'm saying that actions have repercussions. You had an affair with a married man. His wife found out. This is what happens next. Claire's face crumpled. You're supposed to be on my side. We're trying to rebuild our marriage, remember? I am on your side. That's why I think you should settle this quickly and quietly. Pay whatever Jessica wants and put this behind us. I don't have that kind of money. The legal fees alone will bankrupt us. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you started sleeping with someone else's husband. Claire stared at me as if I'd become a stranger. Who are you? This isn't like you, Ethan. You're not cruel. I'm not being cruel. I'm being realistic. You made choices, Claire. Now you have to live with the consequences. But the lawsuit was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Claire's carefully reconstructed reputation began to crumble again. Someone, and I had a pretty good idea who, had been sharing details about her affair, about the open marriage contract, about her plans to leave me for Oliver. The story spread through our social circle like wildfire, growing more salacious with each telling. Maya was the first to distance herself, claiming she couldn't support someone who would destroy another woman's marriage. Jules followed suit, along with most of Claire's other friends. Even her co-workers began treating her differently, whispering in corners and avoiding her in meetings. "I don't understand how this is happening," Claire said one night, scrolling through her phone with tears in her eyes. "It's like everyone I know has turned against me." "People don't like feeling manipulated," I said. "When they realize you've been lying to them, they take it personally." "I wasn't lying. I was trying to protect my privacy. By telling everyone that our open marriage was mutual, by claiming I was supportive of your relationship with Oliver." "You were supportive. You signed the contract. Under duress. After you presented me with a fait accompli and made it clear that you were going to see Oliver whether I agreed or not." Claire looked up from her phone. "That's not how it happened." "Isn't it? You'd already been seeing him for weeks before you brought me that contract. You'd already decided to have an affair. The open marriage was just your way of making it look legitimate." "That's not true." I pulled out my laptop and opened the group chat I'd printed out months ago. "Should I read you the messages where you bragged about getting me to sign your contract? Where you called me clueless and talked about your exit strategy?" Claire's face went white. Where did you get those?" "You left your laptop open. Remember? Complete transparency was one of your rules." "You've been spying on me." "I've been protecting myself, which as it turns out was a smart move." Claire stared at the printed messages, seeing her own words reflected back at her. All her private thoughts, her cruel assessments of our marriage, her plans for the future. It was all there in black and white. "You've been planning this," she said slowly. "All of it. The reconciliation, the forgiveness, everything. You've been planning to destroy me." "I've been planning to survive you," I corrected. "There's a difference. How long have you known? About Jessica? About the lawsuit?" "I've known about Jessica since the beginning. I'm the one who told her about your affair." Claire's mouth fell open. You did this? You destroyed my life?" "You destroyed your own life, Claire. I just made sure there were consequences. I was trying to fix things. I ended it with Oliver. I wanted us to work." "You ended it with Oliver because he dumped you. And you wanted us to work because you realized you'd backed yourself into a corner and needed a way out." Claire was crying now, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. "I loved you. I still love you." "No, you don't. You love the idea of me, the security I represent, the comfortable life we built together. But you don't love me. If you did, you never would have written those messages about me. You never would have planned to leave me while pretending to reconcile. I didn't. You were, and you did. And now everyone knows it." Claire looked around our living room as if seeing it for the first time. The photos of our wedding, our vacations, our life together. All of it was about to disappear, and she was finally realizing it. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you face the consequences of your choices. Jessica's lawsuit, the divorce I'm filing tomorrow, the fact that everyone in your life knows exactly who you are and what you're capable of." "Divorce?" I pulled out a folder, my own manila folder, as thick as the one she'd presented to me all those months ago. "I've been documenting everything, Claire. The affair, the lies, the manipulation, the financial planning you did behind my back. My lawyer says I have an excellent case for an at-fault divorce. But we were trying to reconcile. You were trying to manipulate me, again, and I let you think it was working while I built my case against you." Claire opened the folder with shaking hands, scanning the evidence I'd compiled. Photos, financial records, printed emails and text messages, witness statements from neighbors who'd seen Oliver's car in our driveway. It was comprehensive, damning, and completely legal. "You're going to take everything," she whispered. "I'm going to take what I'm entitled to. The house, the savings, the investments we made together while you were planning your exit strategy. You can keep your car and your clothes and whatever's left of your reputation. I'll fight this. With what money? Your legal bills from Jessica's lawsuit are going to drain your savings. And when word gets out about the divorce, about the evidence I have, Do you think your PR firm is going to keep you on? Do you think any firm will want to hire someone with your reputation? Claire's face crumpled as the full scope of her situation became clear. She was about to lose everything: her marriage, her home, her career, her friends, her financial security, all because she'd underestimated the man she'd tried to humiliate. "Please," she whispered, "please don't do this. I'll do anything." You had your chance to do anything. You chose to have an affair instead. I stood up, looking down at the woman I'd once loved, who was now curled up on our couch like a broken doll. I felt no satisfaction in her pain, but I felt no regret either. This was justice, pure and simple. "I'll be staying at Daniel's tonight," I said. "My lawyer will be in touch about the property division. I suggest you find your own representation." I was almost to the door when Claire called out to me one last time. "Ethan, wait. Please. I know I hurt you, but this is cruel. This isn't who you are." I turned back to look at her, this woman who'd tried to destroy me and was now begging for mercy she'd never shown. "You're right," I said. "This isn't who I was, but it's who you made me. And you know what, Claire? I think I like him better." I walked out into the rain, leaving Claire alone with the wreckage of the life she'd built on lies and manipulation. Behind me, I could hear her sobbing, but I didn't look back. I was done being the understanding husband, the passive victim, the man who accepted whatever life handed him. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new apartment, reading the newspaper over coffee, when I came across a small item in the business section. Brennan and Associates had laid off a third of their staff, including Oliver Chen. The article mentioned that several clients had pulled their accounts following a series of failed campaigns and ethical concerns about the firm's practices. I smiled and turned the page. Justice, it seemed, had a way of finding everyone eventually. Claire had settled Jessica's lawsuit for a sum that wiped out her savings. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago, with me keeping the house and most of our assets. Claire had moved back in with her mother and was working at a small PR firm in the suburbs, making a fraction of her former salary. Our former friends had chosen sides, and most had chosen mine. The full story of Claire's manipulation had eventually come out, including the group chat messages and her plans to claim I'd been a willing participant in our marriage's breakdown. People didn't like being deceived, and Claire had burned too many bridges to rebuild her reputation. I'd heard through Daniel that she'd been seeing a therapist, trying to understand how she'd made such a mess of her life. I hoped it helped her, genuinely. Not because I forgave her, but because I wanted her to understand the full scope of what she'd lost and why. As for me, I was doing well. Better than well, actually. The Henderson account had led to other opportunities, and my career was thriving. I'd started dating again, nothing serious yet, but I was meeting interesting women who appreciated a man who knew his own worth. I folded the newspaper and finished my coffee, then got ready for work. It was going to be a good day. They all were, now that I was living life on my own terms instead of accepting whatever someone else thought I deserved. Claire had taught me an important lesson. Sometimes the only way to win is to refuse to keep playing by rules designed to make you lose. I'd learned that lesson well, and I'd never forget it. Outside, the sun was shining and I had work to do. I grabbed my keys and headed out into my new life, leaving the past where it belonged, behind me.